She spent her days laboring, and her nights hoping. When up grew dim, she did not say, "All right, Broadway, you win." She said, "Very well, Broadway, you may whip some, but not me. I'm going to force you to give up." One publisher, the Saturday Evening Post, sent her 36 rejection slips before she broke the ice and got a story across. The average writer, like the average in other walks of life, would have given up the job when the first rejection slip came. She pounded the pavements for 4 years to the tune of the publisher's no, because she was determined to win. Then came the payoff. The spell had been broken. The unseen guide had tested Fanny Hurst, and she could take it. From that time on, publishers made a beaten path to her door. Money came so fast, she hardly had time to count it. Then the moving picture. Men discovered her, and money came not in small change, but in floods. The moving picture rights to her latest novel, Great Laughter, brought $100,000, said to be the highest price ever paid for a story before publication. Her royalties from the sale of the book probably will run much more. Briefly, you have a description of what persistence is capable of. Fanny Hurst is no exception. Wherever men and women accumulate treated riches, you may be sure they first acquired persistence. Broadway will give any beggar a cup of coffee and a sandwich, but it demands persistence of those who go after the big stakes. Kate Smith will say amen when she reads this. For years she sang, without money and without price. Before any microphone she could reach, Broadway said to her, "Come and get it, if you can take it." She did take it until in a happy day, Broadway got tired and said, "Ow, what's the use? You don't now, when you're whipped, so name your price, and go to work in earnest." Miss Smith named her price. It was plenty, away up in figures so high that 1 week's salary is far more than most people make in a whole year. Verily it pays to be persistent. And here is an encouraging statement, which carries with it a suggestion of great significance. Thousands of singers who excel Kate Smith are walking up and down Broadway, looking for a break without success. Countless others have come and gone. Many of them sang well enough, but they failed to make the grade because they lacked the coraggio, keep on keeping on, until Broadway became tired of turning them away. Persistence is a state of mind, therefore it can be cultivated. Like all states of mind, persistence is based upon definite causes. Among them these: definiteness of purpose. Knowing what one wants is the first and perhaps the most important step toward the development of persistence. A strong motive forces one to surmount many difficulties. Desire. It is comparatively easy to acquire and to maintain persistence in pursuing the object of intense desire. Self reliance. Belief in one's ability to carry out a plan encourages one to follow the plan through. With persistence, self-reliance can be developed through the principle described in the chapter on autosuggestion. Definiteness of plans. Organized plans, even though they may be weak and entirely impractical. Persistence. Accurate knowledge. Knowing that one's plans are sound, based upon experience or observation. Guessing instead of knowing destroys persistence. Cooperation, sympathy, understanding, and harmonious cooperation with others tend to develop persistence. Willpower, the habit of concentrating one's thoughts upon the building of plans for the attainment of a definite 164 AGE 165 165 purpose, leads to persistence. Habit. Persistence is the direct result of habit. The mind absorbs and becomes a part of the daily experiences upon which it feeds. Fear, the worst of all enemies, can be effectively cured by forced repetition of acts of courage. Everyone who has seen active service in war knows this. Before leaving the subject of persistence, take inventory of yourself and determine in what particular, if any, you are lacking in this essential quality. Measure yourself courageously, point by point, and see how many of the 8 factors of persistence you lack. The analysis may lead to discoveries that will give you a new grip on yourself. Symptoms of lack of persistence. Here you will find the real enemies which stand between you and noteworthy achievement. Here you will find not only the symptoms of persistence, but also the deeply seated subconscious causes of this weakness. Study the list carefully, and face yourself squarely if you really wish to know who you are, and what you are capable of doing. These are the weaknesses which must be mastered by all who accumulate riches. Failure to recognize and to clearly define exactly what one wants. Procrastination, with or without cause. Usually back it up with a formidable array of alibis and excuses. Lack of interest in acquiring specialized knowledge. Indecision, the habit of passing the buck on all occasions, instead of facing issues squarely, also backed by alibis. The habit of relying upon alibis, instead of creating definite peplins for the solution of problems. Self-satisfaction. There is but little remedy for this affliction, and no hope for those who suffer from it. Indifference, usually reflected in one's readiness to compromise on all occasions, rather than meet opposition and fight it. The habit of blaming others for one's mistakes, and accepting unfavorable circumstances as being unavoidable. Weakness of desire, due to neglect in the choice of motives that impel action. Willingness, even eagerness, to quit at the first sign of defeat, based upon one or more of the 6 basic fears. Lack of organized plans, placed in writing where they may be analyzed. The habit of neglecting to move on ideas, or to grasp opportunity when it presents itself. Wishing instead of willing. The habit of compromising with poverty instead of aiming at riches. General absence of ambition to be, to do, and tune. Searching for all the shortcuts to riches. Trying to get without giving a fair equivalent, usually reflected in the habit of gambling. Endeavoring to drive sharp bargains. Fear of criticism, failure to create plans and to put them into action, because of what other people will think, do or say. This enemy belongs at the head of the list, because it generally exists in one's subconscious mind, where its presence is not recognized. See the 6 basic fears in a later chapter. Let us examine some of the symptoms of the fear of criticism. The majority of people permit relatives, friends, and the public at large to so influence them that they cannot live their own lives, because they fear criticism. Huge numbers of people make mistakes in marriage, stand by the bargain, and go through life miserable and unhappy, because they fear criticism which may follow if they correct the mistake. Anyone who has submitted to this form of fear knows the irreparable damage it does by destroying ambition, self-reliance, and the desire to achieve. Millions of people neglect to acquire belated educations after having left school because they fear criticism. Countless numbers of men and women, both young and old, permit relatives to wreck their lives in the name of duty, because they fear criticism. Duty does not require any person to submit to the destruction of his personal ambitions, and the right to live his own life in his own way. People refuse to take chances in business, because they fear the criticisms which may follow if they fail. The fear of criticism, in such cases, is stronger than the desire for success. Too many people refuse to set high goals for themselves, or even neglect selecting a career, because they fear the criticism of relatives and friends, whom I say don't aim so high, people will think you are crazy. When Andrew Carnegie suggested that I devote 20 years to the organization of a philosophy of individual achievement, my first impulse of thought was fear of what people might say. The suggestion set up a goal for me, far out of proportion to any I had ever conceived. As quick as a flash, my mind began to create alibis and excuses, all of them traceable to the inherent fear of criticism. Something inside of me said, "You can't do it. The job is too big and requires too much time. What will your relatives think of you? How will you earn a living? No one has ever organized a philosophy of success. What right have you to believe you can do it? Who are you, anyway, to aim so high? Remember your humble birth. What do you know about philosophy? People will think you are crazy." And they did. Why hasn't some other person done this before now? These, and many other questions flashed into my mind, and demanded attention. It seemed as if the whole world had suddenly turned its attention to home, with the purpose of ridiculing me into giving up all desire to carry out Mr. Carnegie's suggestion. I had a fine opportunity, then and there, to kill off ambition before it gained control of me. Later in life, after having analyzed thousands of people, I discovered that most ideas are stillborn and need the breath of life injected into them through definite plans of immediate action. The time to nurse an idea is at the time of its birth. Every minute it lives gives it a better chance of surviving. The fear of criticism is at the epitome of the destruction of most ideas, which never reach the planning and stage.